Okay, the one thing that everyone who watches my videos always asks for. We want to see the game room tour. And this is something that I've been thinking about for a very long time, but it's always been that, oh God, that one machine in my room isn't working, or I really have to clean up the countertop before I could shoot a real game room tour video, right? We don't want people to see all of our messes. And I gotta let you know, I did nothing to prepare for this video. In fact, I'm gonna call this Tofer's practical game room tour. It's more of a behind the scenes tour than it is a game room tour. I didn't clean up any of my stuff. I didn't move anything. You're gonna see exactly what it's like when I come down here at night, shoot all these videos, go upstairs, edit them all, and get to bed at about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And then do the same thing over the next day. And how when you have a collection like this, that starts to accrue over time. So, where to start? The best place is probably going all the way back to my very first love. Yeah, you probably saw some lighting in the background here. That's because this is where I shoot my videos. And quite literally, I'm not changing anything to make this video. This is very behind the scenes, but I digress. It all starts right here with this Ms Pac Man machine. This Ms Pac Man machine, if you haven't seen that video, you should check it out. It's right here. This was my grandfather's. I grew up with this in my grandfather's house, and this is where my love of video games came from. You can still see all of these awesome wear marks from my grandfather sitting and playing it every night with his hands gripping so tight. And then when he passed, it was left to me. But in the 80s, he had this machine, and that's what sparked all of this for me. So we'll start with the arcade collection. I actually didn't get my first real arcade machine in my collection until I was, about 20 years old. I found it in the Penny Saver. Some of you may remember the Penny Saver. It was actually a physical little booklet that you'd pick up at the local grocery store, and it had a bunch of ads in it. It was basically Craigslist before, the internet. And I found a bunch of arcade machines for sale in there. One of those very first ones, you've already seen this video probably, was my Final Fight. I picked up Final Fight. I also picked up a couple other ones, which I don't actually think are in this room anymore. So Final Fight is the only one from that original bunch that still remains in my game room to this day. So let's go ahead and start right over here at the front. This will give you a really good idea of what it's like in here. This is my Spider-Man, or as I like to call it, my arcade machine next to the desk that I shoot at, the catch-all. As you can see, this is where a lot of the stuff goes when we're not shooting, or when we just finished, live streaming and I need a place to set the headphones and the controllers, or, when I shot a video about VHS tapes or backbone controllers, and they just happen to still be sitting on the desk. And that is my Spider-Man. It stays off most of the time when I'm shooting videos because the attract mode on it can be relatively noisy, and I don't want that in the videos. Here's something I haven't done a video on yet. This is my original 3 change door asteroids. Really awesome story behind this machine that I will get to in a future episode of Behind the Arcade. If you haven't seen that, you should check out that series of videos as well. This one's been in my collection for a very long time, and of course, gotta show you the mess. My wife's gonna kill me. This little table here is where everything gets set when we're, done with it and I don't actually put it away. Let's take a look. We got a bunch of Wiimotes here. An old Casio little tiny television, Game Boy game. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. The dog treats from the live videos. That's the side table that nobody ever sees. Next is my Lethal Enforcers, another machine that I haven't done an episode of Behind the Machine on, so stay tuned. This is probably one of my favorite light gun shooters. I really love it. Fun machine. Next is obviously my Ms Pac Man. we just talked about that. It was my grandfather's. Sitting next to that one, my X-Men 4-player cabinet. Now I have done an episode on this one. If you want to know the history on it, you should check that video out. The next machine in my collection is the Final Fight. I've already done a video on that one. If you want to know the history on why I have a Final Fight, you should check that video out. These machines here, behind the desk, which is here, all stay on when I'm shooting videos because it's part of my backdrop, you know? This is what draws your eyes into the videos when you first see them pop, you know, into your feed. All right, so next we have the Lucky Egg Machine. Let's talk about the Flintstones Lucky Egg Machine for a second. If you grew up around one of these things, then you already know, but you put some quarters in it. Fred spins around and he spits you out a lucky egg. Now, if you don't join my live streams, you're probably wondering why the hell I have a Flintstones Lucky Egg Machine in here. But this is how I do the giveaways. Inside each of these eggs is a prize that people win on the live streams. Let's just out of curiosity, let's see what we would have won here. A Neo S controller by Cracked. Wow, so if somebody would have pulled this egg on a live stream, they would have won the Neo S controller. Instead, we're gonna throw it back in there. So if you wanna be a part in the Flintstones Lucky Egg Machine, you should come join one of the live streams over on Twitch. We do that 4 nights a week. Now, here's a little piece here that people ask a lot about. On top of the Lucky Egg Machine is my stripper pole Mario. This is something that was exclusive to Target. People ask me how I got them all the time. I will never tell. And then if you look back behind there, we got some Dr. Mod 3D printed Mario stuff. We got Chain Chomp bursting out of the wall. Boo. A Wolverine cowl on top of the X-Men. We even have the Bullet Bill, who is actually a little compartment inside. I try and put all these neons and stuff down here to make it look very arcade-like. All right, so next in the line here is the Sega Saturn store kiosk. This is a kiosk that sat inside a game store or a retail store, you know, in the 90s when the Sega Saturn was popular. I have done a full video on this bad boy when Dr. Mod and I completely refurbished it. It does have a Dr. Mod special Sega Saturn inside, which if you look inside, actually has a hard drive with every single Sega Saturn on it. I typically keep this thing off as well when I'm shooting videos because it does have a tendency to hum and make some noise. You younger generations out there can actually hear that. As a professional musician, I can't hear none of that, so it doesn't bother me. So let's go to the next arcade, my all-time favorite arcade light gun shooter, and that's Carnevil. I have done an episode of Behind the Machine on Carnevil, but if you were unaware, it is a arcade shooter by Midway that used pump action shotguns. Most underrated light gun arcade shooter of all time. My monitor is on the ground at the moment because I do use this area to shoot all of my short form and long form videos as well, which I can't do when the monitor's up there. But when we live stream, the monitor sits up on top of here, and the missus has her own monitor, which is down there, and then the camera shoots, let me see if I can get it, right through at this angle. So most of my videos look like this, but you lucky dogs are getting to see all of this today. All right, next in line, we actually have something that's kind of a work in progress. This is a Nintendo Virtual Boy store display. When people ask me, what's the rarest thing you have in your collection? This is probably it. It has one of those no value price tags because it really depends on what somebody's willing to pay for it. I'm never gonna sell it, so I'm really not all that concerned, but it was given to me by a good friend of mine who owned a game store, and it still works perfectly. And if we look down here at the very bottom, this is the little Sony Trinitron tube television that you see me using in a lot of my videos when I hook up my old school stuff. It just sits down here next to that most of the time. Why am I showing you all this stuff? Why am I showing you my mess of a room? Well, it's because I want this to feel about as real and authentic as it should. As if you came to visit me in my home, because this is what it would look like most of the time. Once a year I have a Halloween party, and I clean this room up a little bit, people play in it. So maybe once a year it looks like that. But the majority of the time, it looks like it does now. Like somebody's actually using it. Like somebody who doesn't have a lot of free time is using it. That's me. And even right now, I'm multitasking. So if we look over here on the desk, this is my iPad. I am currently uploading the next long form video. That's how I do it. I do it on an iPad. Yeah, nothing fancy about this production at all. I'm just a dude who's been collecting stuff for a long time that started making videos. So next in the lineup is my Mortal Kombat 2. One of my favorite machines. We got Mortal Kombat 2. I've already done a video on this. It still has all the side art, that awesome Raiden shooting lightning from his fingertips. Still has this beautiful control panel overlay. I added the bezel that has all of the fatalities on it. Unfortunately, Mortal Kombat is one of those machines that seems to always have a power supply issue. I've tried year after year to fix it, but it does turn on. It also has a mind of its own when it's on. So one of these days I will get around to fully fixing it. I love the machine though. Next is, I call it the Life in 24 Frames arcade machine. This is a custom machine that I made, based off of my band. We have an album called Bitter End. I made this machine about that time. It's actually a multicade. So it's got an old school PC inside there that is running a bunch of emulators basically, but it's running it on an old tube CRT monitor, just like a arcade machine. I'm actually surprised the thing still boots up. The machine's on this side of the room and not that side of the room. Usually stay off unless I have company over because I don't need to consume the power, first off, and secondly, they make a bunch of noise. Next we have the jukebox, one of my favorites. I put all of the music in here myself. It does still work. It's a Row CD100. As you can see, it's become a catch-all to a lot of the mini consoles because I have a TV mounted on the ceiling above it, and a lot of people like to play on it. I also have Shorty from Killer Clowns from Outer Space. And then I have this sitting down here on the ground. This is a Sega karaoke system. It's a Sega, it has a Sega amp, has a Sega receiver, and this down here is a Sega disc changer. So it was only sold in Japan. I can't remember what it's called, the Prologue 21, something like that. Not only is it a karaoke machine, but it's a Sega Saturn as well, which I thought was super interesting. So of course we had to find one, and one of these days I'll make a video on it. Next up, my favorite arcade racer of all time. That is Rush 2049. Some of you may remember Rush, San Francisco Rush. This is basically San Francisco Rush. This is just the futuristic version. Back when this first came out, which was probably 98, 99, 2049 was 50 years in the future. It was like, oh man, things are gonna be crazy. Then we're gonna have flying cars and all that shit. We're halfway there, and none of that has really come to fruition yet. So I don't know how accurate you were, Atari, but it's fun. It's a really fun game. It's the only arcade racer that I have. Still has all the beautiful side art. It does have a big chair, and the chair has a subwoofer built into it with speakers, and it's obviously a catch-all right now as well. My wife would kill me if she knew that I was making a video about all of this clutter, but this is realistic to me, you know? I'm not a messy person, but you know, sometimes we get busy and we just don't put stuff away. All right, so next up in the arcade is my Comet. Now, if you watch my videos, you've already seen this was the latest release in the Behind the Machine series. This is one of my favorite pinball machines of all time, the very first pinball machine I ever played, the very first pinball machine to ever have a 1 million point shot. Again, if you're unfamiliar, watch the video, it's really fun. This too becomes a bit of a catch-all. We have, on Wednesdays, we do a Game Boy live stream over on Twitch. So here's a lot of the Game Boy Color games. And then here's a bunch of the 3D print signs that Dr. Mod has been making me. Even, you know, big stuff like this, and light up stuff. I have some chromatics laying around. And then this area, usually where the stools are like the cue for what's coming up next in videos, and that would be the Sega Nomad rebuild video. So I don't want to spoil anything, but stay tuned for that one. All right, so next is another pinball machine, one of my favorites. This is my Jurassic Park. I wish there wasn't a bunch of stuff on it. I could show you that I completely shopped it out, but unfortunately, not too long ago when we had all the machines on and everybody was down here playing, we ended up having some kind of power supply issue. This will be the third, maybe fourth time Jurassic Park has had a power supply issue. So I have to call in the professionals because I just don't have time to dig through all of this stuff and, you know, really spend time fixing it. I wish I did because that's part of the reason why I love this stuff so much, but I don't. And so somebody has to come look at it. But I love Jurassic Park because it had the gun handle for a plunger. Yeah. We got more Game Boy games and more 3D prints of stuff. Here's the guitar that I play on all the live streams when you guys redeem a guitar pull. Those are the pinball machines. This is behind the shooting area. And then lastly, but not leastly, in the arcade collection is the Papa Immortus slot machine. I just say that because there's a ghost mask on top of it. This is a real true to life quarter slot machine. It's a 5 times. It came out of South Lake Tahoe. It used to just take tickets, but since it is privately owned by me, I've converted it back to coins. So it takes quarters. When people come over, they can sit and pop quarters into it and play to their heart's content. But if they're playing with my money, they do not get to keep the winnings. That's the Tofer rules. That's how it works. Now we're gonna go back to the beginning over here where we started because I want to show you actually what's happening up on top here. I have these shelves, and these shelves are where a lot of my boxed consoles live. You know, my DS boxes, PSPs, Vitas, and N-Gage, and even some more modern stuff. And then I did put some of my big boxed PC stuff up here, my Diablo collection, my World of Warcraft collection. As the shelving goes over here, this is where the consoles start. Early Atari stuff is over here. Sega stuff, the Xbox and Sega Genesis boxes. And then of course we got Billy, who just hangs out there. He's from Halloween. Any Hocus Pocus fans, maybe? Sega Dreamcast. And then starting on this shelf above the window over here, we have the Nintendo stuff. All of this is from my childhood. NES box and the Zapper, my Super Nintendo box from my childhood, my N64 from my childhood, GameCube, Wii, a couple of Wiis. We got my Wii U. And then on top of some of the machines, my Fallout Power Armor helmet, Freddy vs. Jason. And then back there I've got, you know, the Wii box. So all the Nintendo consoles. And then there are some boxes that I don't have up because I just don't have space. As we come over here, this is where all of my more modern console boxes live. Let's take a look at those, shall we? So all the PlayStation stuff, you can see the original PlayStation. These were actual legitimate releases, Japan only, of course. But these were some colors that were released over there. And then I got my PlayStation 2 Slim, PlayStation 3, my PS4s, PS5. We got the Xboxes, and those go all the way down. I don't know how this guy got here. And a PlayStation Classic. I guess I'll have to find a different place for that. All the way down, and then of course we have my collection of Bull Airs shoes. Over here in what I like to call the little cubby, it's actually a wet bar that is very blocked at the moment. This is where I keep a lot of the Garbage Pail Kids collection. So a lot of the Garbage Pail Kids that are still in boxes like this. I have my neon signs, and then a lot of original boxed Garbage Pail Kids. Actually 2 sealed boxes of Series 15. I have the UK Minis sealed box, and all those are still completely full and sealed packages. I love Garbage Pail Kids. Now this area over here is what I truly like to call the catch-all. This is the backstage area. But if you look above it, it's actually where I started building cases for all of my handhelds. I was really proud of it for a while before it started to get overcrowded. I started with these IKEA glass shelves. I put a bunch of lights in them, and then I was gonna build out all the Nintendo handhelds. You know, everything from the Game Boy up through the Color. You know, we got the printer in there. We got the micros. We got the original Game Boy Advance and the SP, the DS. And you come down here, and we got the regular DS, the 3DS. I got my 3DS XL that I actually still play. Up here is all the Sega handhelds. We have the Sega Game Gear, both versions. We got the Sega Nomad, the Sega Mega Jet, and then even the Sega Mini Game Gear. All the PSPs that I have a bunch of different PSPs because I love them. And then my PlayStation Vitas. I do have a bunch of PlayStation Vitas too, but some of them are not in the glass case because I play them still pretty frequently. Now I do have a bunch of random oddball handhelds as well. I got stuff like the N-Gage by Nokia. Got the Neo Geo Pocket Color. I even have a Nintendo Love Tester. It's the very first electronic product that Nintendo ever brought to market. Got stuff like the Hyperkin, Superboy, and stuff like that. I do have a collection of some of my favorite games from my childhood boxed. I got a copy of Super Mario 64, my original copy, Super Mario 64, signed by our pal, the voice of Mario and Luigi himself. And then I do, way back here, to piss people off, I do have a selection of games that are graded by WATA. Some of them are actually my games from my childhood that I carved my name into and stuff. I don't sell this stuff. I don't have a problem with people who sell this stuff, but I personally do not. I like to keep them as like a keepsake. It's like a sealed little trophy. So, you know, take that as you will, but some of us don't like to encase things because we want to sell them. Some of us like to encase things because we want to preserve them and because we love them that much. Think about that the next time you attack somebody in a video for getting their card graded or grading their game. And of course, on top of this shelf is my collection of miniature arcade replicas, which you cannot see right now because it's covered with stuff. Here we have a Sharp SF7, which if you're unfamiliar with that, I've done a video on it. It is a Sharp television that only came out in Japan that has a Super Famicom built into it. And then it is sitting on top of a Super Famicom Box, which I've also made a video on. That was what they used to put in hotels. You can stay in hotels, rent them, and then play to your heart's content in your hotel room, as long as you're willing to pay for it. And of course, my collection of miniature arcade machines. I love these things. I got a miniature Coke machine. And then I have a bunch of stuff that needs to go in this case, but I just don't have room for. Like this really cool red PSP, or this awesome Hyrulean 2DS. I love this sort of stuff. My newest collector's edition of Indiana Jones, and stuff like this that I still need to hang up and put places. But this is a showcase, a Game Boy showcase system where you can store all of your Game Boy games, and then it had a little section over here where you can store all the manuals. And I ran into one of these at a convention last year and just had to get it. And then of course, all my neons and stuff. And then who doesn't love Tenacious D? Now, when you walk around this room, this is what I call the arcade, you'll see a bunch of random stuff sitting around. For instance, let's take a look at this chair. This is a chair that people sit in when they come over, but sitting here is, you know, it's a bunch of Zelda amiibos, and that's because tomorrow, or at least tomorrow as of shooting this video, I will be starting my live stream playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom. So I have all these things out, they're sitting here in this chair. They're likely to sit in this chair until I'm done with that series. And even then, probably take a few weeks, maybe a month for me to actually put them away. Let me show you what it's like sitting behind the lights, shall we? This is where I shoot all of my videos. If you've been following my videos or you watch all that stuff, this is where it happens. But what you don't see is this side of it. Brighter than shit. It's very blinding actually, and when you're playing games here on a live stream, it can be very hampering to the eyesight. But I got this big old ugly ring light, which I'm actually gonna be changing out. It hangs from the ceiling. It gives me a lot of light. And then I have these little key lights on both sides. And then I have this long light down here that gives us a little bit of uplighting. Over here to my left is the monitor that I have, you know, all the chat and everything going on most of the time. It's where OBS is usually living. And I run an Atmos X. This is the Atom X. It's a multi-cam switcher. So, you know, you can plug multiple things into it via HDMI, and you can select them on the go as you're running live. So I'll usually have the main camera here and the Egg Machine camera over here, and I can switch them here. I also run a Stream Deck that helps me change, change out the different scenes on the fly. People do ask me about my PC. It's kind of like a little shuttle box. I can't remember what these things are called, but it's a tiny little PC. And I think I'm running a 4080. I think it's a 4080 that's in there. This is what it's like sitting behind this desk. This is the angle that you guys always see. It always looks so nice. You wanna know a little secret? When you shoot on video, stuff like this, CRT televisions, the frequencies at which those run at, they're different. So if you wanna shoot a CRT, you have to change, usually you have to change the frame rate on your camera so it doesn't do that. See that jogging? It's because this camera here is running 30 frames a second. I could adjust it to where it doesn't jog, but then half the other stuff in this room would then jog. And then over here, right below the cabinet, this is what I have, this is what I call the queue, right? This is where everything's queued up to either be worked on by me or to get a video in the very near future. And if you've been watching my videos, you know about this. This is my brand new to me, PlayChoice 10 countertop. Dr. Mod got it for me for Christmas, and we're in the process of getting ready to rebuild it. Fix stuff like the joystick and put new games in it. We're even gonna mount a zapper to the side of it so we can play Duck Hunt. And then we have all kinds of stuff like this that's kind of sitting here. Truth be told, this area here is actually pretty clean in comparison to how it usually is. So that pretty much covers the game room, or as I like to call it, the arcade. This isn't the only game room in this house, or at least downstairs. Everybody thinks this is a basement, and for all of you watching this that have been thinking that for a long time, this isn't a basement, not even close. We're on the ground level. In fact, that's outside. It's my backyard. It's the river down there, but we're not in the basement. This is just the first floor of the house. Now that you've seen the arcade and a lot of the behind the scenes stuff in here, let me take you to what I truly like to call backstage. That's the room next door. Oh, look at this, see? This is what I'm talking about. I was shooting a video with the PlayStation 1 reshell, and somebody came to the door, and I had it in my hand, and I just left it sitting up there. This is how stuff gets misplaced. Anyways, here we are. This is what I like to call backstage. When I originally moved into this house, before I started shooting videos, this was going to be my retro playroom. This is where I would come and play all my games. This is where I was going to show my kids, all of the glories of what childhood was like when I was a kid. So I built this room, built it up, built all these beautiful shelves from IKEA for every console that I owned, and every console is there. None of them are plugged in. Got this really nice OLED television behind us, and then I was gonna mount CRTs on both sides of it. I got all the games. Once I started shooting content and the content took off, this idea just went right down the drain because it turns into a backstage, right? So let me give you a really good example. Well, let's say I want to shoot a video with the N64 disk drive, okay? I have to come in this room and come over here and look all down this shelf. Oh God, okay, oh, here it is. Here's the N64 disk drive. So I pull this baby off the shelf and take it in the room next door, shoot a video with it, and when I'm done, usually I have 2, 3, 4 other videos in queue that I have to shoot right after it. And so I set it down on the ground, or I set it in the chair next to it to shoot the other videos. And then, it ends up sitting in there for a while. This is quite literally just about every console I own, going all the way back to the NES and Super NES. Different colored GameCubes and different colored Dreamcasts and all kinds of stuff like that. Multiple PlayStation 3s and PlayStation 4s and different colors of Xboxes, all kinds of different stuff. And then on the sides, I have all of my games. Now, back when I first started this room, all these things were like organized and they were in alphabetical order. And then, I go, oh, I need to do a video on Splatterhouse. That would be a great one. So I come in here and I rifle through all my Genesis games and I find it and it's way down here and I pull it out and then all these games come crashing down. So then I temporarily put them back up just so I can get the video, you know, done. And then I don't come back in here and reorganize them. Life happens. But these are all the Genesis and Sega CD and Sega Saturn and Master System, Dreamcast games. And then over on this side, we have all the NES cartridges. I have them all cataloged in my phone, but they used to be in order until, you know, I needed to come in here and grab DuckTales off there. And then I had to rifle through it and find it and pull it out and they all come crashing down. Yeah. So let's look at this awesome beanbag that I spent all this money on. Anybody familiar with the brand Lovesac? Yeah, I went to Costco and bought this really nice, sort of expensive Lovesac beanbag, and look what it's doing. It is quite literally a catch-all to stuff that I just shot videos with. Here's a Commodore 64, here's a Hello Kitty Dreamcast, there's a Sega CD and a Sega Genesis, here's an old screen to an original Xbox. Who remembers those? There's even a TI-99 on the ground, a Texas Instruments. Most people don't even know that that thing existed. And then of course, behind me here is all of my physical media on disc. Most of this stuff on the wall, and down here is like Xbox 360, PlayStation 2 era. And then all of this over here, these are some of my movies. Now, I did in recent years start putting some of my physical media collection in cases and putting them in a C-bin in storage properly because I had lots of doubles and triples. You know, you buy something on DVD and then the special director's cut comes out. So, and you gotta buy that, and then it comes out on Blu-ray and you buy that. That used to be the game. I love physical media, but sometimes I think I'm sort of happy it's coming to an end. I'm just kidding. I'm not happy at all. But I have all of these cases up here that at one point I labeled. So like this was all N64, GameCube stuff. There's some PlayStation stuff in there. There's a Dreamcast and Saturn. And then I got a lot of boxed stuff, you know? This is stuff that's just been sitting here. Oh, look, here's a Sega Dreamcast steering wheel. There's Mario Kart Live. Remember that? PlayStation 2 box, Dreamcast box. Ooh, there's a Famicom disk system. It's all boxed still. A lot of big box PC games in there. There's a copy of Rainbow Six. Man, you guys are getting to see a lot of stuff that I don't even see. Look at this. Sitting on the shelf is, it's got a Famicom controller with the Hudson B on it. It's interesting. Sometimes I don't even know where this stuff comes from. But anyways, this is what I like to call the backstage area. When I'm cleaning that room next door, the arcade stuff is, a lot of it comes into this room and gets set and then doesn't get put away. And some of it is even starting to flood into this next room. We even have stuff that's kind of just chilling out in this spare room. So there you have it. That is what I like to call Tofer.A's practical game room tour, because there was never gonna be a perfect time. If I did make it just perfect, where everything was all put away and everything had its place, that would be sort of inauthentic to you guys, because it never looks that way in here. And I think it's really important for people to see things in the manner that they really truly are. Because when you look at things on the internet like this, you look at videos like this, and you see picture perfect stuff that's always working, it's unrealistic. That's not life. In life, shit's broken a lot of the time. Kind of like the Jurassic Park and the Mortal Kombat 2 and the Nintendo Play Choice, you know? And I think it's really important to see things from that perspective a lot of the time. And that's why I turned the camera on and started shooting this. This is my game room tour. It's more of a behind the scenes tour, but I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll do updated versions, you know, maybe every quarter. This will be winter 2025. Jesus, it sounds weird saying that, especially considering that game there is supposed to be set in 2049, which isn't very far away. So from me to all of you, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoy the videos that I do produce. I appreciate all of you watching. And if you have any questions, or you want to see more of something in this weird, wild, messy collection of mine, hit the comments and let me know. And if you want to know more about some of these arcade machines, I'm doing a full video series. You should check it out right here. And follow along to the channel right here so you don't miss videos like this in the future. So with that being said, I would like to say the most important part of doing any of this is enjoying the process. It's okay to have goals, but the process is the thing at the very end, whether it be at the end of the day or at night or at the very end of our lives. The process is the thing that we always remember. So always take the time to enjoy the journey.